Hello team, how are you? I am recording a walkthrough of a workflow I would like to share in tomorrow's meeting. So I am going to share a screen. Great, so what you are seeing now is a workflow that is envisioning what takes place, or talking about what takes place as a potential entrant approaches the gate, and it has lanes for the entrant, the guard, the application logic, that there's not a screen, but sort of the logic that's taking place, Poniso, and the central office. And the purpose of sharing this is so that we all have a shared mental conception of what is taking place, or what should take place as somebody approaches the front gate, and to be able to have clarity about what screens we think we need to design for this sprint, or what logic we need to implement for this sprint, and what already exists. So this is meant very much in the spirit of a check for understanding. So this is my understanding. If there are things that are different in the ways that you guys are understanding it, then we should talk through that. And if this is all right, then we should also then figure out what the next steps are, and discuss whether there are ways to improve it. So looking over here on the key, I just want to point out that green color code indicates that it is a design that I'm aware of exists. Blue means I think that we need to design it for this sprint. And an ellipse is something that will take place outside of the application, and this diamond means a decision, end of process, or a separate process. So I am, this first workflow is one where an anonymous person shows up at the gate. And the first question that comes up is whether or not they have a profile. If they do, we're going to assume they're a returning user, and I've covered that in a different workflow. But assuming that they don't have a profile, the guard needs some way of looking them up by the phone number that they have. And if we know that number and they are a returning user, we'll just punt them to a different workflow. But if we know that number and it's their first login, then there's some updated information that we need to capture from them. At the very least, this may be a picture, but there may be some other things that, that we need to do. I'm assuming that the guard is going to be the one capturing that information, at least for the MVP, so that the guard has a specific place where they are taking pictures of new residents and adding them to the profile. And this also would be the flow where we might need to capture a vehicle identification. Assuming that they're authorized, we have a screen already that says, yes, entry is okay, at which point I'm expecting that the guard would tell them to please download the application, and that they would have then a phone number, but we need something where they will create a password and fill out the final step in that creation of the profile, and then they are allowed to enter the property. Coming back to here, if we look up a phone number and it is not found, at this point, I think the workflow that we are implementing is that they should be denied entry, and they will need to call Poniso. I think this is also the case if they are, if we find that they are not authorized for some reason after getting this information. So either way, they'll be in the deny entry flow, and they'll need to call Poniso. I think that Poniso will then need some way of getting the information about who it is that they're talking about, and being able to see the information or the picture that the guard has already captured. I know that we have designed a screen that looks like this. I think this may just be the same as our identification screen, but without a specific status to it. It could also be that we want to have a slight variation on that screen. So Ahmed, I will leave that as something for you to think about. But as Poniso is reviewing that profile, what he will do probably depends on a couple of things. I think if they're a contractor and Poniso sort of recognizes the company that they're with, or sort of knows who they are, and we just didn't have them in the database yet, the application should create that account, and they will be granted entry. And again, the guard will tell them to please download the application for the next entry, and then they will go into the property. If they're a resident, Poniso wants them to have a guided or escorted entry. So we will go ahead and update the database with whatever information they have. Poniso will go and show them around. There may be a new status that we need to add to the entry screen, just so the guard knows that, but maybe that's also something that's handled on a phone call. But either way, the guard will then be the person entering the gate will be escorted by Poniso going into the gate. And then if there's some other situation that's taking place, we still want to log that profile and make sure that we know who they are, but they'll be denied entry and told to see the front office, where they will visit that office. And I believe we also need to have a approve or reject screen that the front office will be able to do. This may actually be the same screen as this one over here. Haven't thought through that in a great deal of depth, but I think that's something that we might want to think through together. So that's it. So that's the flow for somebody that is approaching for the first time. Now, if they're a return user, they have a sign-in screen that we already have, a show identification and a scan identification screen. So all of these things should come through pretty easily. If we, in that process, if something is wrong, I think that the guard would then want to update the profile with that same profile screen that we did before. Again, I'm assuming that that's the guard that would be doing that for now, not the resident, but that is something also I think worth discussing. And then if that's a valid ID, then they will be granted entry status into the property. Whether it's valid or not, there will be some sort of determination on status. So this could be either an approve or deny screen. Either way, I think that we have that captured. So that's it for the workflow. I just wanted to share that in advance so that if you do have a chance to review it, you can. If not, we will look through it tomorrow morning. Thanks.